welcome back. We're here with our 8th episode of Three Mike Sports Talk. Big show today as we look at some college hoops, preview the Major League Baseball season, maybe a little bit of NBA talk, and we look at the Big Ten for college football preview. So let's start on the hard court here. We have rivalry week coming up this upcoming week. Aiden, what are some games you're looking for?
Well, the biggest rivalry of the week has got to be by far. It's Duke taking on UNC. Obviously, a great game last time between the two, 92-90. Duke won in overtime. Also, we got Florida at Kentucky. That's on Saturday as well. That's a big game because Florida probably gave Kentucky one of the best games of the year. Obviously, they didn't take them to overtime like a couple of the other SEC teams, but that was a really fun game to watch. Then last, Iowa State's taking on TCU. Obviously, TCU is one of the weaker teams in the Big 12 this year, and Iowa State's one of the best. But this is a really interesting Iowa State team to watch right now. Now, they lost 2 games heading into last night's game against Oklahoma, and what a game that was.
Yeah, crazy game. They won a 22-0 run in the second half. Sure, you started with the Duke-North Carolina game. Of course, we talked about their last game between each other. There's never a dull moment between these two teams. Every time they go up against each other, it's an outstanding game. I think this is going to be the same one. A similar outstanding game. You talk about Florida, Kentucky. I agree. I think Florida really has a good chance to give Kentucky a run for their money. Few good scores. Michael Frazier II, Dorian Finney-Smith. They could really have a good game.
I really feel like I'm saying the same thing every week when we talk about Kentucky. I just think that they're too good and too big to lose in this SEC schedule. It's really weak. Florida's really not that team we saw in the earlier 2000s. I really don't see Kentucky losing that one. We go back to that Duke-UNC game. This time we're in Chapel Hill. Obviously, that could have a huge impact on the outcome of this game. Last week I did take the Tar Heels to win it, and that was at Duke. But this week I really will stick with them again.
Yeah, I think this one's going to come down to who can get the job done on the defensive end. Obviously, a really high-scoring game last time. Both teams showed the ability to basically score at will. I think this one's going to come down to who can defend one another. And I think the advantage sort of goes to Duke, a little bit more athletic, and offensively they're just the stronger team.
Yeah, I think Duke is just a better team than North Carolina. North Carolina is obviously going to go all out. I believe it's senior night for North Carolina on their home court. 2 firing offenses. It should be a great game.
Yeah, if we're talking about this Florida-Kentucky game, I think when you look at the SEC as a whole, there's not really any team that can match up with Kentucky's size and athleticism. But I think Florida is probably the team that comes closest in terms of their ability to defend, their ability to shoot the ball from the outside. I'm interested. What do you guys think about this Florida team?
I don't know nothing. I know nothing.
Aiden, I'm going to be honest with you. I have not seen this Gator team enough this year to really have anything of much value to say. But as I said, I'm sticking with Kentucky in this one.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate the honesty. I'll tell you guys about Florida. Really athletic team. In that last game against Kentucky, obviously it was in Gainesville, but they're a team that has so much more experience than Kentucky. They've got more older guys, and I think that could come into play down the stretch. Maybe not in this game, but I feel like these are two teams that could definitely see each other a week from now in the SEC tournament, and that'll set up an interesting rematch.
For sure, and it's a big game for Kentucky. They just don't want to give Florida any confidence. They don't want Florida to think that they can beat them, because that could become dangerous if it comes to the SEC tournament. And you brought up the Iowa State-TCU game. I think that's an important game for Iowa State to really go all out, and they need to put up a big win by big numbers over a weaker TCU team on the road. I think this is their chance. I think they need to prove to some people that they're legit, and this is their chance to do it.
If you saw Kentucky lose this game, would you still have them as a 1 seed going into the tournament?
Yes, I would.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. With this Iowa State team, I agree. This is a big game for them. They lost 2 in a row going into Oklahoma last night, which was in Ames. I think it's a great 22-point comeback, but if you can't fall behind 21 points in the tournament and expect to be able to make that sort of comeback. This is a team that, we'll be honest, they've struggled over the past 3 games. And I think this is a big game for them to pick up some momentum heading into the Big 12 tournament and heading into the NCAA tournament, because I think we all agree this is a team that can make a pretty deep run in both tournaments.
And you mentioned they had lost 2 games going into that, and before that, they had let some other teams that probably shouldn't have been in close games with them, they'd let them hang around and they have only come out with 5, 6, 7 point wins.
we talk about the inability to fall behind, and we look at that Virginia game last night. Obviously, Virginia was down, 13-2 with 7.5 to go in the first half. Only 2 points in the first 13 minutes. That's just unacceptable for a team that's ranked second in the nation.
Yeah, I've said it all year about Virginia. They don't score the ball well that easily, but they certainly make up for it on the defensive end. And last night we saw that they weren't scoring points, but they were able to keep it close through the majority of the first half, and then they sort of picked up the offense towards the latter part of the half.
Sure, and they never let teams shoot the ball well against them. Syracuse only shot the ball 38% from the field. Check out the rebounding numbers from this game. Virginia came out of the game with 42 rebounds compared to Syracuse just had 20. It's more than double the rebounds for Virginia. That's why I think they do have a shot to compete for the national title. They should be a Final Four team.
And I look at the Syracuse team, obviously not competing for anything this year. This was in upstate New York there. It's always a tough place to play. That might have had something to do with it. Might have had a few nerves when they were getting those shots off. But I really feel like if you consider yourself a top contender, 2 points in 13 minutes is just unacceptable.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Obviously, with rivalry week coming up, that just brings us 1 week closer to the tournament here. Aiden, who do you think should be the 4 number 1 seeds going into this March Madness?
Well, obviously we have Kentucky. I don't care if they lose this weekend. They're going to be a number 1 seed either way. I think when you look at Virginia and Duke 2 and 3, I think whoever makes the deeper run if Duke wins on Saturday, I think whoever makes the deeper run in the ACC tournament is going to get a number 1 seed, and whoever doesn't probably is going to get a 2 seed. I also have Wisconsin there. I think they're probably going to win the Big Ten tournament, coming off a tough loss at Maryland the other night. I got Wisconsin. I think Frank Kaminsky, he's just a dominant player down low. He can also step outside and hit the threes. And then Villanova and Arizona are both in the conversation. I don't think the Big East is that strong this year, so I don't really respect that 27-2 record that Villanova has. Arizona, I think the Pac-12 is a little stronger this year. I watched their game at Utah the other night. Certainly a difficult environment. I liked what I saw from them. I've probably got Arizona getting the 4th number 1 seed. You look at Gonzaga, a lot of teams thought Gonzaga was going to get that seed, but they sort of fell out of contention with that loss to BYU at home the other night. What do you guys think?
I like what you said about Virginia and Duke. Whoever makes further in the ACC tournaments gets the number 1 seed. It would be interesting to see if neither of them go and win the ACC tournament, what would happen there. I think it ultimately one of those teams will get a number 1 ranking, probably not both of them. I definitely like Arizona to get a number 1 ranking. They have scores over probably the 3 top favorites to win Pac-12 Player of the Year are all from Arizona. Stanley Johnson, Rondé Hollis Jefferson, TJ McConnell. They've got an outstanding team. They score the ball. They play great defense. I like Arizona.
Yeah, I agree with you guys in saying that Kentucky's definitely going to be a first seed come tournament time, even if I almost think it's irrelevant how they finish off this season. I look at Virginia. I feel like they have to score a little bit more to really prove themselves to me. I know they have that great defense, but I'm really not sure. I do agree with Aiden in saying that Virginia-Duke, it'll be who goes further in that ACC tournament. Kind of brings you up to the question, who's playing for more in that Duke-UNC game. Duke obviously has a number 1 seed on the line, so maybe they'll be playing with a little bit more hop in their step. And then I look at Wisconsin. I really feel like, in spite of a weak Big Ten this year, I think that Wisconsin does have a legitimate chance to be a number 1 seed.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think when you try and compare Duke and Virginia, obviously Virginia head-to-head, Duke won Virginia pretty close there. I think the difference between these 2 teams is that Virginia doesn't have any bad losses, whereas Duke lost to Miami at home. They lost on the road at NC State. And then they had a tough loss at Notre Dame. That's probably their only good loss, if there's such a thing. Or the difference with Virginia is they've only got 1 loss this year, and it was against Duke, a really quality opponent. I think if both those teams don't make it deep in the ACC tournament, or even if they both make it to the same, just as far in the ACC tournament, I think the advantage is probably with Virginia right now, despite the head-to-head loss.
Yeah, I agree with the advantage going to Virginia. And if you want to look a little bit off the table, I look at the conference that's been the best in the country this year, the Big 12, and the team that just clinched the regular season, Kansas. if they win the Big 12 tournament, I wouldn't be upset if I see them as the number 1 seed.
When I look at Kansas, though, Patrick, I cannot stop thinking about that huge loss to Kentucky in their second game of the season. Of their 6 losses this year, I don't think they've lost to. I think they've lost to a weak Oklahoma State team rather, not overly powerful West Virginia team. I'm not sure about having them as a number 1 seed this year.
Well, I do think the Big 12 has been the best conference. I think, Andrew, you would agree with that. So I think it would be not too bad of an idea to give the winner of that conference a number 1 seed.
I just think Kansas has lost too many games this year to get a number 1 seed. 6 losses is far too many. Obviously, that blowout against Kentucky at the beginning of the year, I don't think that should be taken into account too much. But some of their losses in conference play this year, just too many losses for me to put them on that top line.
Yeah, I lost by 25 to Temple. I just don't see that as a tournament number 1 seed. All right, so we just finished up our discussion of college hoops here. A topic that gets a little bit more overlooked on this show, college baseball. It's a beautiful game in my opinion. This week we've got a great tournament, the Dodger Stadium Classic. We've got 4 unbelievable national powerhouses. We've got Vanderbilt, UCLA, USC, and obviously that strong TCU team out of Fort Worth. Patrick, how exciting of a weekend is this for you?
It's really exciting. A lot of people are going to look at the top 10 teams, TCU and Vanderbilt. They're going to face off on Sunday at Dodger Stadium. What a great game that'll be. Also, people are looking at UCLA, who won a national championship a couple years ago. I'm looking at USC. They're going into this 12-0. They've got one more game tonight, so they'll either be 13-0 or 12-1. They got a lot of momentum on the side. I think they can pull an upset over one of these TCU or Vanderbilt teams. Sophomore catcher Jeremy Martinez is hitting the ball really well. So is shortstop Reggie Southall. They got a really good team over there.
Patrick, I know you love USC, but I'm looking through these rankings right now, and I don't see USC anywhere in the top 30. I'm just wondering about some of the quality of the teams they've played early on in the season. I think there's some question marks there. I got to stick with some of the more experienced teams come, postseason time, I guess you could say. But I really like Vanderbilt. I like the way they've been playing lately. Great pitching. Struggling a little bit at the plate, but I think they'll make up for it this weekend.
Yeah, Vanderbilt obviously does have that great pitching, known as a pitching powerhouse. Over the years, they've developed guys like David Price, Sonny Gray, guy like Tyler Beatty. This year, I love their shortstop, Dansby Swanson, a really Mr. Baseball, hard-nosed kind of player. He's a fun guy to watch. I hope to see him go in the first round of the draft this year. But I'm really looking at TCU to walk away with the best record this weekend. Obviously, Jim Schlossnagle is going to have those guys out ready to play, the Horned Frogs. Great hitting team. Obviously, they've got that great pitching staff. We saw them develop. Brandon Finnegan, who had a huge impact in the Major League postseason last year. They are 7-1 this year. That one loss, tough non-conference game to lose, but I really feel like they're going to come out on top this weekend.
You look at probably the biggest game, the Vanderbilt-TCU game. I think I'm going to go with Vanderbilt on that game. I think they've obviously got the pitching. They're coming off a national championship. I think they've got a great program. I think don't discount USC. They've got a couple good wins against top 25 Cal State Fullerton. They beat Fresno State, swept Oakland, swept Fordham. They've had some good wins.
Yeah, I think when I look at this Vanderbilt baseball team this season, obviously a disappointing start. I think they already have, if I'm not mistaken, their losses, their record's 9-2, and those 2 losses came in non-conference games, which are always tough to lose when you're playing at this level of baseball. But I do look at their last game against Illinois State. They went down 10-0 in the second inning and put up 16 runs to come back and win 16-10 in a fantastic game. Obviously, they can swing it. Pitching wasn't there, and their bats made up for it. All right, stay in between those lines here, and we're going to talk some Major League Baseball. Obviously, we've got spring training games. Grapefruit League and Cactus League both begin today, so it's a beautiful time of the year. Let's look forward to this Major League season. Who do you guys have in winning each division?
We'll start with the AL East, by far my favorite division to watch. I like the Red Sox. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased. I'm a Red Sox fan. I think they made some big offseason acquisitions. Look at guys like Yoan Moncada, Sandoval. I think those are just going to be make an immediate impact. I'm looking for the Red Sox to have a pretty good season.
Yeah, I like that as well. I think in the AL Central, I think it's the Tigers should be the favorites to win this. I think they should win it without too much trouble in the AL Central. Obviously, Miguel Cabrera, Ian Kinsler, they got a great pitching staff. I like the Tigers in the Central.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Oakland Athletics to win the AL West there. Obviously, a great pitching staff. You got guys like Sonny Gray. They did pick up some guy who some see as a little bit of clubhouse cancer in the form of Brett Laurie this offseason. Obviously over from Toronto in return for a fan favorite over there, Josh Donaldson. But it'll be interesting to see how he fits in with the whole dynamic. But I see the Athletics as a really strong contender to win the AL West this year.
Sure, I agree with that. I think in the NL West, I like the Padres to win it this year. I think they could be a real sleeper team this year. One of the best outfields in baseball with Matt Kemp, Cameron Maven, Justin Upton. They got a really quality pitching staff, good infielders. I like the Padres.
Yeah, we talked about the Padres a few weeks ago. Totally agreed. Definitely one of the best pitching staffs in the league. Obviously, really strong outfield as well, but there's definitely some questions around some of those infield positions. They can't really get it done at the plate. I'm not too sure about the Padres right now.
Right, I agree with you. I think their middle infield is also a little weak defensively. And that's obviously a really tough NL West division. You got the Dodgers, Giants, Padres, Rockies, and Diamondbacks. And I look at two other teams, Dodgers and Giants. And then I'm also kind of looking at the Rockies here. If the Rockies can finally figure out how to pitch at their home park this year, I think that they're going to be a strong contender. But I obviously don't think you can bet against the Dodgers, really. They're just such a strong team with so many big name, high quality players throughout their lineup. I look at the NL Central here. I like the Pirates this year. Obviously, they got a young guy like Garrett Cole, great fireballer there. I don't know what you guys think about them for winning the NL Central.
Yeah, I like the Pirates as well. Andrew McCutchen, one of the best center fielders in baseball. I think the Pirates could really make a big impact on the whole league this year.
And obviously, they got that beautiful PNC Park to play at. Finally, we'll wrap things up with the NL East. I don't think there's really much question here. I think that the Nationals have got this bad boy locked up. I don't know if any of you disagree with that.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's the Nationals division to lose.
Yeah, I agree. Some outstanding young players over there. I think they've got it in the bag.
Yeah, only team above 500 in that division last year. All right, from the diamond here back to the gridiron, or over to the gridiron, should I say. This week we're going to continue our series of conference previews looking at the Big Ten this week. Obviously, we had the Ohio State University winning the national championship this year. Aiden, what are you looking for out of the Big Ten this year?
Yeah, obviously, like you said, you can't talk about the Big Ten without talking about Ohio State, and I think you can't talk about this Ohio State team without talking about the quarterback position. I think that's what we have to start with today. I don't think there's any way to beat around the bush there. I think this Ohio State team, three really good options at quarterback. Obviously, Braxton Miller. I think he's probably in third place right now in that quarterback competition. Then you got J.T. Barrett and Cardale Jones. I think the advantage that Cardale Jones has over these other two guys is that he's not coming off an injury, and I think that could be big. And obviously, he just won a national championship for them. That doesn't hurt too much either.
For sure, the momentum to win the job's on Cardale Jones' side. But I think ultimately it will be J.T. Barrett. That's my opinion. I think he's the best quarterback of the three. I think he's got just as good an arm as Cardale Jones, and clearly he's outstanding with running the football. It's kind of like Marcus Mariota in that sense. I think J.T. Barrett, if he does get the starting job, he could be a Heisman contender. What do you think?
Well, yeah, he was a Heisman Trophy candidate this year, and then he fractured that ankle in the fourth quarter against Michigan. I think depending on how his recovery goes, I still like Cardale Jones just because there's some questions surrounding J.T. Barrett's injury and the severity of it. I like Cardale Jones. I like the physicality that he brings. And just in the 3 games he played in this year, I think he played against 3 really good defenses, and he just sort of scored at ease against them. You saw him run over some defensive linemen. He's got, in my opinion, the strongest arm in college football. Obviously, there's some questions about his decision-making ability. I mean, he's only played in 3 games, so there's obviously, if you look at how he played, and then there's still a huge learning curve there as well. You're going to see him make even bigger steps this coming year.
You could also look at the argument that a lot of people make that Ezekiel Elliott actually carried the team in the 3 games Cardale Jones started. I'm also looking at Ezekiel Elliott as a Heisman contender. He's a seriously good running back, obviously over 200 yards in each of the last 3 games. He's against 3 of the best defenses in the country. Ezekiel Elliott might be the best running back in the Big Ten this year.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Braxton Miller has 0 chance of starting at The Ohio State University this year at the position of quarterback. I am going to side with Patrick and say that I wouldn't say that it was all Cardale Jones who led that Ohio State team to victory. Obviously, their defense played incredibly, but I also think that the play of Ezekiel Elliott was what really led them to the elusive national championship.
All right, if we sort of move away from just talking about Ohio State and the quarterback position, what do you guys think about how the Big Ten season's going to go? Who's going to make it to that championship game? Who's going to win, and will they get the bid?
Well, I'm not sure about all of that right now, but I just want to talk about Michigan a little bit with obviously a new coach, Jim Harbaugh, over there. I think it'll be really interesting to see how he's able to rally those guys. Obviously, he has that great pro experience. He's going back to the alma mater. He's going to be passionate. He's going to be fired up to really have a really successful year this year. It'll be interesting to see how long this turnaround is going to take for that Michigan team.
Sure, I think Michigan's going to be one of the most improved teams in the country this year. I don't think it'll be enough to compete in the Big Ten, especially in that East Division with Ohio State and Michigan State. Obviously, I think Michigan State's the second best team in that conference. They probably won't make it to the conference title game, of course, because they have to compete with Ohio State in the same division. If you look at predictions for the conference championship game, I think Minnesota could be a contender for there. They had a great team last year. They're bringing in a pretty good recruiting class, including star running back Jonathan Femi Cole. I think Minnesota could have an impact.
Well, I wouldn't go as far as to call Jonathan Femi Cole a star running back, but I think he could be a good player there at Minnesota. Also, you got to talk about Wisconsin. They got killed in the Big Ten championship game this year against Ohio State. I'm looking at maybe setting up a rematch this year, and obviously I think Ohio State's going to win the conference again.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that Ohio State's going to win the conference. The questions in the East Division, there's a few good teams, no great teams. Nebraska's another team that could have an impact. Of course, they're losing Amir Abdullah. They've got Jordan Westerkamp back, an outstanding receiver. But yeah, it should be an interesting conference to watch this year.
You talk about Femi Cole. Obviously, that guy is great for him on his deadlifts. I really hope he's listening to the show right now. You can go ahead and cut that out.
No, I'll keep it.
I didn't really say anything.
This guy's going to break his back. Yeah, obviously we're talking about Ohio State here. I think we all pretty much agree Ohio State's probably going to win the Big Ten. I think the Big Ten's got to be one of the weaker conferences in terms of depth right now. There's just not that many good teams. I think Ohio State's going to win, and I look for them to get a bid to the college football playoff again. What do you guys think?
I agree with that. I think I'd actually probably be a little surprised if they don't go undefeated this year. They don't play any really top 25 team besides Michigan State, and I guess Minnesota could be a top 25 team this year. But it's obviously Ohio State's conference to lose.
Yeah, their out of conference schedule. I think really the only interesting game to see is going to be their game against Virginia Tech. Obviously, Virginia Tech beat them in Columbus this year. Now they head to Blacksburg. Going to be an interesting matchup, but I think Ohio State's going to kill them, frankly.
Sure, it all relies on that first game for Ohio State. If they can go to Virginia Tech and come out with a big win, momentum will be on their side, and they probably won't falter for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and you mentioned that this conference lacks depth, but obviously they have Ohio State, that great national championship contender. As a conference, would you rather be a team that had great competition all throughout, great depth? You probably had a few top 25 teams, but no national championship contender, or would you rather be a conference like the Big Ten where you have that one standout?
Like if I'm like the commissioner of a conference?
Right.
I think it's much better to have a conference with a couple of good teams because you just set up more intriguing matchups. Obviously, people like to watch close games. It's just the nature of football. And I think you look at the SEC, particularly the SEC West, just a lot of really good teams in that conference. I think it's just more exciting to watch, frankly.
I think it's more exciting to watch the conference with the depth. An example of that would be the Pac-12 South. There was really a crazy race going on last year. 5 teams were in the running with two weeks left. 5 teams were all top 25 teams. They all had the same record going into the second last week of the season. The Pac-12 South is just an example of why I think that it's good to have depth in a conference. I think that's what the Big Ten is lacking, which is why it shouldn't be quite an exciting conference this year.
Yeah, looping things back to the Big Ten here, we just heard that the Big Ten is considering making freshmen ineligible to play. Does somebody want to kind of clarify things, or?
I'm pretty sure what they're saying is, yeah, freshmen would be ineligible to play. I'm not sure if this is just for football, but for all sports. So it'd basically be like an automatic redshirt sort of thing. Now, I actually think this is probably better for the kids. It gives them a full year to develop. Obviously, most people redshirt now anyways. But in terms of recruiting, I think this could really hurt the Big Ten. Some of the top recruits would say, oh, I could go play at Alabama and play right away, or I could go to Ohio State and sit out a year and then play in a pretty weak Big Ten. I think this might actually be better for the development of the players, give them a year to get bigger and stronger, but I think it could hurt them in recruiting.
I think it would be a terrible decision if the Big Ten were to do that. Look at now more than ever, more and more true freshmen are making an impact in college football. High school football is getting better, which means these players are ready to play from day one, a lot of them at least anyway. And I think obviously it would give them a handicap compared to the other conferences if they didn't let their freshmen play, because so many teams are relying on freshmen nowadays.
Yeah, obviously right now you have that choice to redshirt or to not redshirt, and there's a reason you have that choice. Some kids are ready to play at the next level, and some kids are just not physically ready to play at that next level. I don't think that they should be forced to sit out for a season if their body and their physical ability is ready to go.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
All right, and that brings us to everybody's favorite portion of Three Mike Sports Talk. Maybe it's just our favorite portion, but that takes us to quick picks. This week we're picking Notre Dame at Louisville basketball at the KFC Yum Center. Who you got?
When I think about this matchup, it brings me back to, I think it was 2 years ago in South Bend when these two teams met up. Game that went 5 overtimes. I actually was watching the game, and I turned the game off with about 4 minutes to go. Notre Dame trailed by probably 12, and I think Jaren Grant hit a couple of threes to send it into overtime. Louisville missed a couple of buzzer beaters that could have clinched it in like second, third, and fourth overtime, and Notre Dame won it in fifth overtime. Stormed the court. Great game to watch. I think Notre Dame's going to win this one. Had a couple of tough losses lately. I'm not a huge fan of this Louisville team. Obviously, they lost their point guard. Can't remember what his name is, but he got kicked off the team, and there's some legal issues that are happening with him. I got Notre Dame.
I'm going to go with Louisville, the home team. They've got more experience in these big games like this. Obviously, both teams being ranked in the top 20. I think Louisville's the team that'll get it done.
Yeah, last night I tuned into a great episode of the Power Hour, great radio show out of Bowdoin in Maine, and they talked some Notre Dame basketball, and I really feel like they gave me confidence in this Irish team, so I'm going to take the Irish over Louisville this week. All right, so that brings us to our second game. We've got the Cleveland Cavaliers in Atlanta taking on the Hawks. Aiden, who you got?
I got the Cavs in this one. I like the way they've been playing. I watched their game against Golden State a couple nights ago. I really like the way they're playing. I'm not sure if Kyrie's going to be back for this one or not. Either way, I like the way the Cavs are playing. The Hawks are looking good too, but I like the Cavs.
Yeah, I like the Cavs too, with or without Kyrie Irving. The Hawks haven't been as dominant as they were before the All-Star break. I think the Cavs can get it done. J.R. Smith's playing pretty well for them. I think the Cavs are too hot for the Hawks to handle.
Obviously, this game has big Eastern Conference implications. This game is in Atlanta. The Hawks are a great team. I'm going to go with the Hawks this week. All right, so that takes us over to the ice, where we got the Montreal Canadiens taking on the Anaheim Ducks, and that game's in California. Aiden, who you got?
Yeah, I like the Ducks in this one. They've won 2 in a row. Obviously, they're at the top of the Pacific Division. I like the way the Ducks are playing. I think it's tough to go across the continent and get a win. I like the Ducks.
I agree with that. I think the Ducks are playing great hockey recently. Ryan Kessler, Corey Perry are playing outstanding. I think the Ducks will be able to get it done against the Montreal team who has to travel all the way across the continent.
Yeah, these are two teams, obviously, that both have 87 points. Anaheim has a game in hand there. I like the Habs in this one, and obviously I got to make up some ground. Got to make up some ground in quick picks this week.
Do we have the standings in terms of?
Yeah, we do actually. You want to pull those up?
Yeah, I know. Currently going into this week, I'm 11-4. Aiden is 9-6, and Kozix is 8-7. 8-7.
All right, we'll keep you guys posted on that.
Yeah, that brings us to the end of our show here. Obviously, if you want to learn things like quick pick results, our T-shirts just came in. Follow us on Twitter at 3MikeSports. That's the number 3.
Yeah, that's 3MikeSports with the number 3, not the letters.
And if you have any questions, use that hashtag Ask3Mikes. We're always open to questions, and we'll try to answer them on the show next week.
Just a reminder, shirts are in. Bring your money. Come pick them up. And till next time, stay up, 3 Mikes Nation.
Dust to gold, but you